There you go.
Okay.
So, welcome everyone to this Ontario Federation of Sled Dog Sports conversation. And today we're excited to be joined by Jesse Terry from On the Land Sled Dogs in Sioux Lookout, Ontario. Jesse is an accomplished long distance musher with race experience that includes the Beargrease, the Canadian Challenge, and the Yukon Quest. And he's also looking ahead to one of the biggest challenges in the sport, and that is the Iditarod in Alaska. So, in this conversation, we're going to get to know a bit about Jesse and hear about his background, his dogs, learn about training on lakes and trails in Northern Ontario and how that shapes his team, and talk about goals and visions for the future a bit. So I think to start off, can you tell us just a bit about, where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of how you were first introduced to dog sledding and sled dogs in general?
Yeah, sounds good, Jacob. Yeah. Yeah, before I do that, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be here and to just to share a little bit about what's going on in our neck of the woods and what we're doing with our kennel here. Um, I grew up in Sioux Lookout where I live now, and after some time away in college, I decided to move back home, to live here and to raise our family here. Um, I was really fortunate to get started in mushing at a young age when my dad and mom started getting sled dogs when I was around 11 years old. And
Mm,
it was set up as a recreational thing that was kind of to the goal for them was just to have another opportunity for the kids to spend more time outdoors, specifically in the wintertime now. They both took us on long canoe trips every summer. And so it was always something we did in the summertime lots, extended canoe trips for up to 3 weeks at a time, all the way
mhm.
up to the Hudson Bay coast. And so I grew up a land-based lifestyle where they with a heavy emphasis on spending time in the outdoors and as a result I was just very comfortable in the natural environment because that was something that our parents instilled in us, just how they raised us. And I consider myself very fortunate for that. And even before we got sled dogs, there was always things we did in the outdoors with snowmobiles and going and cutting firewood. My dad taught winter survival training all my years growing up, and so
Okay, cool.
ideas about being outdoors and keeping yourself comfortable were always very natural to me, just by proximity of how I grew up and who I grew up with.
Hmm.
And those are definitely things that are huge assets for me as a musher, right? Because the idea of you can better look after your dog team once you're completely comfortable in your environment yourself. And I definitely consider myself again fortunate to have been raised in that setting where being outdoors is second nature to me, and that goes in the wintertime as well.
So
And
when
so,
you were growing up, how many dogs did your parents have? Like it was a
yeah,
smaller size team kind of thing?
exactly. Yeah, we started out with a rec, like it was a very rec kennel, and I was the one who motivated the scene to start racing. We started off with two adult experienced dogs. One of them was kind of a leader, the other one wasn't.
Hmm.
Then we got two dogs who were Siberian. So we started off with a pair of Alaskans who were kind of retired race dogs that we got from another musher in town, who got them from a musher who was running Beargrease at the time in the early 90s or mid 90s, and
Mm.
then a pair of Siberians. And so that was the start of our kennel, was these four dogs. Um, I think we quickly realized that the Alaskans was the type of dog that we wanted, just with their work ethic, their personability around their humans was a big part of it, and just their desire to be moving down the trail. It was evident at that time, even as a young boy, that the Alaskan Husky was the dog for what I wanted to do with them, and in my opinion, a superior sled dog for what I'm hoping to do with them. And so that's how it started. There was a couple of breedings that happened from there, and that those first four dogs we got when I was 11, and it just kind of morphed from there, to the point where when I was 15 and 16, there was sprint races happening within the area that I was deciding to try and use our dogs for, and that's kind of how I started racing. Was in those teen years with these kind of hodgepodge team of dogs that we put together, and that was kind of the roots of it. As a young man, my dad had worked with sled dogs. He had some Malamutes when he was a young man, and his stories about that are just they didn't sound very fun working with some of the Malamutes, just with some of their nature that they have. We don't need to get into that now, but and so he had already had a bit of experience with working with dogs, and then, like I said, he wanted to get into it more with his children, and then I was the one who really was drawn to it. Prior to sled dogs, there was always a black lab in the house, and so there was always a connection with dogs that way. From a very young age, I would go camping with one of our black labs by myself. From when I was 11 years old, I started going camping on my own with this dog in the wintertime. And so very just kind of like a natural flow of what I'm doing right now as a result of where I come from. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, my mom grew up in Lac Seul, here, Lac Seul First Nation, and so I come from a mixed background where my father is has a settler background and my mother is an Anishinaabe from here. And so I've always drawn on both sides of my heritage to live my life the way that I do. I consider that. Both my parents have strong connection with the land and doing things in the outdoors. And like I said, they took their infant children on week-long canoe trips, really remote, back when there was no satellite phones or any of these
Yeah.
things we have today, right? When I think about what they did with us, I can't imagine it, right? It's like a whole other world of craziness.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, it's as a result, it resulted in who I am today to be living this life that I'm living right now, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so there was the rec team when I was a teenager. I graduated high school, was really into some other things, was always wanted to keep doing the dogs. And those later teen years, went to college, was really into climbing mountains and rock climbing at those time. Was kind of
Okay,
was,
cool.
was gearing up to become a mountain guide. That was my big passion for from 50, like from 16 or 15 to late 20s. That's where I was heading. I was wanting to become a mountain guide. Different life things happened. Became a father. Had a pretty serious accident in the mountains when I was 27. Just decided I wanted to make a change with my life and move back home. At that time, there were still a couple of sled dogs in the kennel that my dad had kept. And after I moved home, I decided I wanted to get back into dogs, but to also use it for more than recreation. And at that
Hmm.
time, I started on the land sled dogs without the intention of racing, but only for tours and for programs, primarily with First Nations youth. I would do a
Hmm.
lot of programs where I would travel to the remote communities on the ice roads and then show up and give rides for a couple of days. And there was a long period of my life where I did that when I was a young, when my children were very young and before they were born in that time frame, 15, about 15 years ago now, when the dogs, and then it kind of morphed into racing in 2012 when a musher friend
Okay.
asked me if I wanted to run the Hudson Bay Quest. And at that time, I was doing the dogs for tours and programs, and he knew I had a team of dogs, and he knew that I was comfortable camping because I had camped with Burton Penner is his name. He runs out of Vermilion Bay.
Hmm.
Um, he was going up to race the Hudson Bay Quest, and he asked me if I wanted to join him. And before that time, it
Okay.
wasn't something that I knew was going to be my life would be revolving around right now, right? And that's kind of the way my life has worked. It's been very fluid. There's
Hmm.
been opportunities that have come about, and I said, yeah, I'll try that or I'll do that, and recognizing that it's something I like to do, something that I have a natural ability to do. And I raced that first Hudson Bay Quest in 2012. Back then, the Hudson Bay Quest was a 200-mile unsupported race where
Hmm. Very
there's
tough race.
yeah, there's no check.
Hmm.
There's a checkpoint, but there's no drop bags, and so you have to carry
Hmm.
your gear the whole time, the whole way. There's the one checkpoint in the middle where you can drop the dogs at 100-mile mark. So this idea of big distances between checkpoints where you have to carry a dog if you need to for that duration to the 100-mile mark halfway, and where there's no drop bags, and so it was a very demanding race
Mm.
to be my first introduction to mid distance racing. I barely finished. I came in with Red Lantern,
Mm-hmm.
and I think at that time I recognized this is something that I really like doing. I like being out in the outdoors. I like pushing myself physically and mentally, and the distance racing allowed that to happen in a way that I was outdoors traveling with my dog team, and it was something that
Mm-hmm.
I recognized I wanted to do. And so I went back to the Hudson Bay Quest in 2013 and 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Definitely improved on my performances there. I don't remember exactly. It was sixth or seventh, I think. Yeah, or eighth or sixth that I came in. But those next 2 years, I won the vet award. I remember, and that was a really big deal to me to be recognized by a vet team uh, that there was excellent dog care for my dog
Yeah.
team. That was definitely a boost to be recognized for those things when I was still feeling very green at the whole activity of distance racing, right, or mid distance race.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and from there was a big break from 2015 to my next mid distance race, which was in 2020 at the
Oh,
300-mile Canadian Challenge. And there was a big life change in a divorce and things that happened in that time. And that was kind of a result of having less effort and energy to spend on racing. Um, and then in 2012, like I said, in 2020, we raced in the Canadian Challenge, the 300-mile, when they used to have the 300-mile there. And since then, it's been a priority to make it to a race, at least one race every season. Been very lucky to make it to several races the last few years, making the racing what the kind of kennel revolves around versus the
mm-hmm.
tours. I still do tours and I still do programs, but it's never the racing has been the priority before that. And so saying no to work when the dog teams need to be trained
Mm-hmm.
X amount of miles or X amount of hours or whatever the case may be, and trying to balance that with family life and paying the bills and all those things. Um, yeah, and to the point now where I think during those first races in the Hudson Bay Quest in 2012 and 2015 and 2013 is kind of probably where I first started thinking about Iditarod in that time. And at that time, it was idea of it was a very far away off goal that was probably not something that I might do, something I might be interested in, but the daunting task of doing it was just probably
Mm-hmm.
really unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
In the Hudson Bay Quest, there was quite a few mushers who ran the Beargrease at the time, and they were automatically saying, "Oh, you should come run the Beargrease. Like your dog team, like you can obviously run a dog team." And I remember thinking then that, ooh, the Beargrease, that's got a big prestige about it, right? A very
Mm-hmm.
competitive race that's lots of
Very
mushers.
tough race too.
Yeah,
Same
totally.
thing. Lots of ups and downs, very
Right.
physically demanding in a
Yeah,
very different way almost. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, known for
Mhm.
its hills um, and then eventually I did run the Beargrease and have done fairly well there, and it's all just kind of rolled along and to the point now where the dog team is I feel a competitive dog team, and I feel like I have the ability to do it, and I feel like there's no reason why I shouldn't be running Iditarod right now. Is what it comes down to. It's something I want to do. It's the dog team is ready. I'm ready. The kids are older now. My kids are 12 and 15, so they're at an
Mhm.
age now where they're doing their own thing a lot of times, and so it's allowing me more of freedom to feel like I can do these kind of things more. And as they get older, it'll just become easier to have that time away. And um, so it's always been a natural flow. I feel like to end up where I am
A
today.
progression towards it.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Well, actually, since you kind of led up to it, I'd love to learn a bit about your dogs. And I
Yeah,
know this specific kind of group of dogs that you have, you're really proud of. And
yeah.
one of the things that I actually had in my notes too, and that I thought was very interesting, and that I've noticed from kind of watching you over the years with training.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are very tied to the lakes in the area with how you train, right? So in the fall, you have to truck a lot until the lakes freeze up. And then I know that even compared to myself, you go across lakes a lot more. I think you travel on lakes a lot more than, say, I do,
Yeah,
whereas we're more so kind of going on older logging roads, that kind of thing.
right.
And you also had a litter, which was named after lakes in northern Ontario.
For sure.
So I thought it would be interesting kind of to tell us a bit about the dogs and this kind of group of dogs that you have, and
Right.
also that connection with lakes, and then kind of the how you end up training them with kind of the start in the fall.
Yeah, cool. So the dogs, yeah, the dogs are all Alaskan Huskies that we run. A lot of the genetics from our yard come through a musher named Jason Campo, who was
Mm,
based out of Rocky Mountain House in Alberta. He invested a lot in top-notch distance bloodlines and put a lot into his breeding program.
mhm,
Um, and we reached out to him in 2020 when the challenge was the first when I was first getting back into it, recognizing that I wanted to improve the genetics in the dog yard. And so we reached out to him, bought a bred female who was mostly a swingling and kind of Solomon bloodline type dog. And that dog was we bought bred to a dog that came off of yours winning Iditarod team, a dog named Flamenco. And so we
mm,
chose a stud that was a proven stud in the direction that we wanted to go. And so this idea of constantly improving the genetics in our yard, not breeding what we have just because we have it and we like them, recognizing that there's better bloodlines and probably better dogs out there who are doing what you want to do. And you learn about those ideas as you mentor with other mushers and you read musher books that it's the idea of breeding the best that you can access with what you have and where you have, basically. And so that's what we did. Campo was the kind of closest musher. He was in Canada. He agreed to wanted to help me out, sold me this bred female. And that was kind of the catalyst for a whole nother caliber of sled dogs, I'll say. Before then, they were Alaskan Huskies, but it was kind of just breeding what I had, picking the best two that I could figure out as a breeding
mhm.
pair. Not really knowing much about pedigrees at that time. Not really paying attention to the breeding, um, and then recognizing how important that is if I want to do what I want to do, which is improve, but also run longer races. And since those initial dogs, we've gotten some more dogs from Campo, and most recently, been buying some dogs from Jesse Holmes. And so,
Mm,
again, the idea of trying to access the best genetics you can, reaching out to mushers who are doing what you want to do.
mhm.
Jesse Holmes being an obvious choice because he's been doing really well with racing. He's always been very supportive of what I'm doing. I've never met the guy, but I consider him one of the like a virtual mushing friend, right? And I think
Yeah.
you probably have lots of those too,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And it's really neat. And I'm really excited for the chance to get to meet him this year for sure.
Mhm.
And so most recently, we bought a bred female from him who was on his winning Iditarod team last year, and the stud was his lead dog who finished the Iditarod in lead. And so again, this idea of constantly improving the genetics and reaching the best that we can. And so really excited about those dogs. There are 6 of those puppies in up the hill in the kennel now. They're named after flowers. We always pick themes, and we take
Nice.
turns picking the themes within the family, within the 2 children.
Who picked this one?
That was Mary's theme, yeah.
Oh,
And
okay, nice. Nice.
Zinnia, Petunia, Poppy, Yarrow, Pansy, and oh, I'm drawing a blank. But we always pick themes, right? And it's a
Mhm.
nice way to kind of keep them together and to remember who is who. And it's always fun when the kids get to pick themes too, right? And so
Mhm.
the first one the first red female we bought from Campo was our daughter's turn to pick, and she named them after Frozen. And so they're all the Frozen characters from the Disney movie, right? And so those
Yeah.
neat connections. And then the lakes litter was my son picked that one, and those are all specific lakes that we've traveled on either in the summertime, but mostly lakes that we've traveled on by dog team in the wintertime.
Are they all lakes in northwestern Ontario? I wasn't even
Yeah,
familiar.
they are.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
cool. Yeah.
Nippigan is the furthest away that is kind
Okay.
of to the east, right? The
Yeah.
rest of them are more north of us or around us. Nipigon is east of us, and we have done some dog sled trips on Lake Nipigon, which is really a cool big lake, and there's lots of nice big features and big hills in these islands on the north side of the lake.
That's yeah, I mean that's that lake is massive. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's quite the lake for
for
sure. I
sure.
mean that's even reading some of the historical accounts, they actually had multiple Hudson Bay Company posts on the lake, and for
Sure.
them to get across the lake and stuff, it's
Yeah,
wild. Like you can
yeah,
have weather changes and stuff, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's and I mean that's something so I know I mean I haven't gone far west enough, but I kind of know this about the area, even with kind of that whole Lake of the Woods, Rainy
mhm,
River. Like there's so much um water, even in
yeah,
a different sense. I think slightly different even than in the Northeast.
for
How we
sure.
have it here, where I mean we're surrounded by lakes and everything too,
Yeah,
lakes, rivers, that kind of thing. But there is some pretty big bodies of water in that kind of
yeah,
northwestern section of Ontario,
yeah,
and that is a very much a section that is it's that extra drive, right? From anybody from kind of southern Ontario, you're almost
right.
closer to Manitoba, so
Yeah, yeah,
it's very much almost its own little world of
yeah,
and very much its own little ecosystem and
definitely.
geography. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so talking about those lakes and rivers and training, it's where we train is a, like where everyone lives. It's a like how you train is a direct result of where you live, basically, right?
Hmm.
Unless you're going somewhere else to train, you deal with what you got, and what we got is lakes and rivers and bush roads. So we live next to the lake, which is really great, but it's also a big downside because we don't have any place to train in the summertime or in the fall from our home with a quad. And so
Hmm.
that means all fall, every training one, we're loading up the team into the trailer and driving about 17 kilometers down the road to the closest bush road system and starting our training there. And so it's an extra huge step,
Effort. Yeah.
effort and
Yeah.
time and money too to
Hmm.
get our dog team trained. And I
Hmm.
think any musher who has to deal with that recognizes that how much more work it is to do that. It's
Hmm.
um, I am very envious of kennels who can run a dog team from their kennel with a quad and go for a 10 or whatever mile run. Um, and that's just the choice that my wife Mary and I made to be here.
Hmm.
And we're happy to be here for sure. And I should back up. I run this kennel with my wife Mary England, and we started being together in 2018, and we've been married in 2021. We got married after deciding we wanted to spend our lives together. And I always tell people that she fell in love with the dogs before me, and so it was a good fit, right? Because I had dogs, and she actually hired me when her mom was visiting in town to
Oh, okay.
take her and her mother on a tour, and
Okay.
that's how I met Mary for the first time. And like I said, she fell in love with those dogs before me, and I'm just kind of the add-on, basically. No,
You're the bonus.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. And so we operate this kennel together, and but back to the training. This is it's a result of where we live, right?
Hmm.
And once the lakes freezes, we can leave from the kennel by dog sled and get down a little trail, and then we're connecting to the lakes right away.
Mm.
We keep a series of trails open on the lake via snowmobile, and we also connect with club snowmobile trails that we train on as well.
Hmm.
There is plenty of trails around that are part of the club trail system, but also trails that are just out there from people who are going out and traveling out by snowmobile, whether it's fishing or the camps or whatever it might be. Um, I think the lakes, I mean, every training, every place, every anyone lives to train their dogs are going to have pros and cons, right? Um, the lakes provide a good opportunity for dogs to run through things like slush,
Hmm.
um, run through wind. We don't get that windy, but it does get windy here in the wintertime sometimes. Snow drifts, the trail's blowing in quite a bit, and we train regardless. I'm very proud of having a dog team that can run down a trackless lake, as long as the snow isn't like too deep, right? They can. I have lead dogs that can lead on a trackless lake for hours and hours and are
At
unfazed
leader for leader training, that's yeah, absolutely.
for
That's
sure.
invaluable, right? And that's something that even I mean, I can freely admit this, I have to do more because
Right,
it's something where you often find out in situations when you don't want to find out that maybe your fancy command leaders aren't so good at commands after all, and they
right,
just,
right.
well, oh, we always turn right there, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so then you think that they do know that, and then when you try
Right,
to go left, it's a whole different story. So yeah,
for sure.
we try to do it more in fields and that kind of thing, but yeah, that's absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they talk about that. I've been warned that many times going to the Iditarod. That makes sure you have a leader that can do that when you're crossing
Mhm.
North Sound, right? The idea of crossing the sea ice. There are trail markers, but oftentimes trail markers get knocked down, and oftentimes there's you can't see the tracks between trail markers, right? A windstorm comes up. It doesn't take long for tracks to be blown over and not visible. And so
Mhm.
you're needing to have a dog team that you can direct by command to where to go when you're on a lake surface.
That
Um,
actually, one of the questions I had was kind of what's the thing about Iditarod that kind of you're the most excited about, and then also what kind of gives you the most kind of sleepless nights or feels the most daunting or has you the most worried?
yeah, well, I think I'm excited about the whole experience, to be honest.
Just
Like
the overall, yeah.
yeah, I really love being
Mhm.
out traveling on the land with my dogs. That's a
Mhm.
big thing that I really love to do. I consider these races a real just a chance to do that in a controlled setting where there are support places along the way.
Mhm.
That's what I consider it to be essentially, and it just happens to be in a race format where I'm trying to do it as quick as I can, and I like doing things efficiently, and I will admit that I like improving, and people will tell me I'm a competitive person for sure. Um, and so I think the Iditarod is going to satisfy a lot of those things that I really love to do in one package. I do other things, kind of endurance sports, where
Mhm.
I'm used to putting myself in a situation where I'm tired and I'm up all night riding my bike. For
Mhm.
example, I've done some long endurance rides where I've put myself in that situation voluntarily, where I know what it's like to do that on my own without my dog team. And I
Mhm.
think again, this idea of preparing yourself is important in all aspects of what we do. And for me, doing these other activities is part of that, because I feel like when you're in a distance race, if you're doing it at a competitive level, you're sleep deprived almost the whole time, and that's a big part of it.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the things that intimidate me the most, is I've never done it for that duration of time, where I've been sleep deprived, or I'm operating on several couple hour naps throughout the day on end, right?
Yeah.
I ran the Yukon Quest 400 last year. It was supposed to be a 450, but it ended up being just 400. Um, and that was my longest race to date. And at the end of it, I was tired, but I still felt like I could make it work, right? I could still do it. Uh,
Mhm.
and so the yeah, I think I'm just really excited about the whole thing. And I think the sleep deprivation is probably one of the things that intimidate me most. But practically, it's the drop bags. Definitely the drop bags, actually.
That
That's
makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing that intimidates the most. Especially living where I am, I have to drive them to Seattle, uh,
Oh, wow.
and to get them on a barge. And I want them to
Oh.
Beargrease, and the dates kind of conflict. And so I'm hoping to find someone to help me basically drive my drop bags to Seattle.
So here's a shout out. Once this video
That's
goes live, if Jesse hasn't found a ride yet for his drop
yeah,
bags,
because I don't
yeah.
think I can run the Beargrease and do that myself, basically.
Mm.
And the Beargrease, I'm using that as a very important training run
Training
before the
run.
Beargrease, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry, before the Iditarod.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's 28 checkpoints I did, Rod?
26, yeah, I think
26.
26. Yeah,
Okay. So 26 bags have to
yeah,
be
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you got two bags.
Packed and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
driven and yeah. Wow.
Frozen. That's a big. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that intimidates me for sure.
Well, there'll be I mean packing everything up and organizing everything, that'll be a big task and that'll
Yeah,
be kind of a team family effort, right? So I'd
definitely.
imagine Mary and the kids and everybody will be in on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
And then hopefully we can find you somebody to help with driving them or figure
Yeah, for
something out
sure. Yeah,
because yeah, make that happen. If you wanna if you gotta run Beargrease, you gotta run Beargrease,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I tried to win it last year and I came third, but
Mm.
so yeah,
So yeah, yeah,
better improve.
definitely.
I'm on to improve on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think that's a great place to leave it for now, and then hopefully maybe in the future, closer to the date, we can maybe do another update or see how it's
sounds
going,
good.
that kind of thing, and have another conversation. And the one last thing I wanted to say, what do you want people, and especially thinking about Ontario and the community and kind of Ontario in general, what do you want people to kind of take away from this or um, to kind of to get inspired by this or to kind of
Yeah,
you know what I mean? To kind
yeah,
of find a meaning for other people in it too, kind of.
sure. Yeah. Well, I think I share a lot on social media, and
Hmm.
the big drive behind that, when I think about it, is this idea that we need to share what we do for mushing to continue. I think it's really important, and to do that in a good way. And I try and do everything I can as the best I possibly can, and the best way that I can. And so I try and share that. And I think that's really important to do for the longevity of mushing. We live in a very online social media world, and I think that our lives need to be connected with that in all aspects, and I think that mushing is part of that for sure. And I would just encourage others to get into ask if you want to get into mushing, to ask questions and to reach out to somebody who can help you, and to find a mentor, and those things are really important. And I've definitely been mentored by people, not like physically, but like through questions and phone calls and emails and all of those things.
Hmm.
um, and that mentoring can happen that way too, right? It doesn't have to be in person, although I think that's probably the best way for a new person to learn, is to be there at a kennel and learning in person. That's not always possible, right? And so
Hmm.
this idea of using the tools we have, the internet, to achieve that is really important for sure. Um,
Hmm.
and also this idea of, and I'm really big on setting goals, and often like big goals, but also to encourage people that it doesn't matter what your goal is. Goals are relative, right? To who you are as a person. And so this idea of choosing what's passionate to you, and trying something, and trying a goal, and taking a risk, and stepping out of your comfort zone to make it happen. Because this idea that all the real growth and good things in our life happen when we're outside of our comfort zone. I talk to my kids a lot about that idea. And I tell them one of my main jobs is to provide you opportunities to be outside of your comfort zone, as their dad, so that that
Hmm.
growth can happen, right? And I think that's a message more like adults could need to be reminded of too once in a while, for sure, because it's where all the good stuff it's where the magic happens, for sure.
Absolutely, and especially the getting outside and getting out
Yeah,
of your comfort
totally.
zone, right?
Yeah.
I think we're very much in a society where everybody says, "Oh, I love being in nature and all that kind of thing." It's like, well, everybody loves nature when it's nice outside, but maybe go
Yeah.
for a walk when it's not, right?
That's right.
Or
Yeah, yeah.
go at night when maybe it's a bit more scary with only a headlamp kind of thing, or you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Those experiences are absolutely vital, and the setting the goals thing is a super important. I think that's
Yeah.
something where to always have kind of something that you're building towards, right?
Yeah. I,
And just for me personally, I think it's also really important just to have somebody from the Ontario community kind of shooting for the stars at like literally competing at this level is very important because it's also something where in order for us to keep the kind of history and heritage alive that we have of the sport,
Yeah.
It's we need people at that top level, right?
Oh,
And those top level people are then also going to inspire a whole bunch of other people who get into it. So
right.
that's
Right.
awesome.
Well, mushing's a beautiful thing, right? I know you have that love with the dogs and the connection with the dogs and the passion. And so it's yeah, it's so great that we're able to share that. And I know you do a lot of that too with what you do. And so I really appreciate the things that you're doing as well, Jacob. So yeah,
Thanks.
it's really special. And you mentioned Ontario, and the support coming from the province Ontario has been really amazing. And so I
That's
just want to
awesome.
say thanks to the Ontario Federation of Sled Dog Sports again for this
Mhm.
opportunity, for sharing all the nice posts about the Iditarod mushers that I'm following in the footsteps of. Is really cool to read about. And I'm definitely proud to continue that, coming from Ontario. And this is where I'm from, right?
Mhm.
And I've chosen to live here, even though I know there's probably better places for me to live to do what I do, right? Um, so it's just the way it is, and
The grass is not always greener on the other side
it's not,
either,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
So
It's what you make of it, right?
that's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
for
So
sure. So
perfect.
yeah,
I We'll leave it there and
okay,
hopefully we'll talk in the future.
yeah, let's do that. Let's have the chat before we drive up to Alaska. We're planning to run the Canadian Challenge on the way up, so we're going to be leaving mid-February, to make our way to Alaska.
Perfect. Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Jacob.
No problem.